roadside bombs, gunfights, and goodwill missions.
When do you think you might be able to walk these streets without a gun?
November 2004, 20 months into the 8-year war in Iraq, National Guard troops found themselves shouldering the brunt of the street battles and nation building.
And when we saw the American soldier around in the street, we feel we are safe.
The 04-05 deployment marked the largest call-up of National Guard troops since World War II.
75% of all the forces in Iraq was guardsmen.
Citizen soldiers.
Citizen soldiers.
Hey, and even the recruiter was like, look, this is going to be state emergencies. We're going to go fight fires. We're going to go do floods. And then 9/11 happens.
At the same time U.S. troops were hunting terrorists behind the 9/11 attacks in Afghanistan, American forces invaded Iraq, a country the size of California, on a mission to end the brutal reign of dictator Saddam Hussein, find weapons of mass destruction, and free the Iraqi people. Police officers, warehouse workers, and computer techs strapped on body armor and machine guns then bore the burden of deciding friend from foe on the streets of Baghdad and beyond.
An insurgent in our definition is pretty much anybody that all of a sudden makes a threat. One day they could be Iraqi national, the next day they could be an insurgent.
Then, Lieutenant Bagley. And now, Lieutenant Bagley. Unbelievable. Look at this guy.
Green Lane 2!
2 decades later, we reconnect with troops we first met preparing for battle.
Just the excitement of going over and helping out where we can.
How about your worst day?
Ooh. When we had to recover a vehicle where an IED had blown it up and we lost some soldiers.
We're off the main roads on the side streets. It's a slow process clearing this zone. This is the same vicinity where this patrol was hit last night by rocket-propelled grenade fire. National Guard troops we followed into the war zone.
These are the living quarters.
There was no organization whatsoever when we got a hold of them about 7 months ago. And now they're an effective tool.
Was it worth it?
I think it was.
Megan?
Yeah.
Chris Thomas.
I know.
Intimate reunions honoring the fallen.
And losing my father took a big chunk of me.
And we go up and visit his gravesite with his dad, Ken Sr. And that's what we've done for 20 years.
Unfortunately, we're here to celebrate my son's death, but it's a bittersweet thing that I really am proud of.
Among the thousands of troops deploying into combat in 2004, 2 Guard units, one from Tennessee and another from Oregon, are symbolic of the shared service and sacrifice of America's citizen soldiers in Iraq.
And it was because they were older, they had more experience, they were ferocious, and they were friggin' tough. Tough as nails. And it's quite frankly, it's frigging amazing what they do.
I'm John Becker, standing just outside a National Guard motor pool flanked by 2 Humvees, a tool symbolic of the war 20 years ago in Iraq. Like the Willys Jeep in World War II and the Huey helicopter in Vietnam, the Humvee was both a sanctuary and a target. 2 decades later, we are reconnecting with citizen soldiers who mounted up for countless risky missions in what some of them called rolling coffins. And this effort is personal. Back in 2004, I embedded with National Guard soldiers in Baghdad. Back then, journalists had to wear body armor, a helmet, and Kevlar vest. In this war series, we learn how the burden of a combat tour didn't end with a homecoming. One veteran describes having lost more fellow soldiers at home than in battle overseas.
Megan?
Yeah.
Chris Thomas.
I know.
We recount the toll on families with lasting impacts today, and we share the military brotherhood symbolized by 2 soldiers linked by blood who deployed together.
Green Lane 2!
Guard in Iraq 20 years later begins with one of the first soldiers we met in training exercises before heading to war.
Green Lane 2!
Training for combat tested one 26-year-old mechanic turned warrior with the Tennessee National Guard.
Praying God will give you the guidance and the strength to carry on.
Bart Wilt was among hundreds of citizen soldiers spending months preparing for any scenario they might face in Iraq.
In war, I mean, anything can happen. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, it's chaos.
Outside war training, Bart and wife Dominique spent their final nights together, sharing moments of peace.
Let us fix our eyes on Jesus, the author.
Bible readings offered comfort before the couple would spend almost a year and a half apart. In 2004, Bart and Dominique offered a window into their mindset.
And just serving our country and doing our duty, it's going to be a lifetime experience.
It's really nervous. I can't believe he's going, but I know that he's going over to do good.
Everybody go.
Take one to the top.
Bobby Green.
Bobby Green.
20 years after that first combat deployment,
I know that guy.
we reconnect with this military couple.
What do you think of that?
Yeah, it was really good to see familiar faces. It was nice.
We will revisit Bart and Dominique. They will help us understand how war shapes military families and how the trauma of combat can linger like a shadow years, even decades later. First, we turn our focus to Oregon National Guard troops arriving in Baghdad early in 2004.
The mindset of the Iraqis at the start of Operation Iraqi Freedom 2 was really still generally positive towards the American occupation forces. Probably 80% of the country was either supportive of our presence there or actively supportive of our presence. But you had 20% there that was absolutely ruthlessly opposed to our presence and would do anything to that vast majority that was okay with us.
Along with weapons and body armor, troops serving in the 2nd Battalion 162nd Infantry also packed personal video cameras.
You joined the Army, and you're in Iraq.
Yeah.
But there's good news.
Yeah, what's that?
I'm here with you.
The documentary This Is War focused on the 2 of the 162 and captures their firsthand accounts.
6 million people live in Baghdad. Around individual homes, there's 10-foot walls go around their compounds.
We just got hit with RPGs and small arm fire last night.
Welcome home.
Welcome to Baghdad.
By the time our cameras arrive in November of 2004, we find soldiers taking skills they learned stateside before deploying and training new Iraqi National Guard troops.
There was no organization whatsoever when we got a hold of them about 7 months ago. And now they're an effective tool.
I think we changed a lot in the average Iraqi civilian's thought process.
In a positive way.
In a positive way, yeah.
Jerry Glassman watches the interview we did with him in Baghdad in 2004 when he was 38 years old.
It's awesome. Brings back a lot of memories.
2162 had people who were anywhere from like 18 to 61.
Correct. We had one guy that turned 60 while he was over there. He was actually in Vietnam. Oh, they were everything from the store clerk on up to lawyer to doctors to mechanics to
police
officers, yeah, firemen, and it was great actually, because it brought a lot of great skills to our battalion.
Now retired, just shy of 29 years in service, this veteran revealed a couple of surprises, explaining his efforts to train Iraqis forming a new security force. What do you think the fate of those soldiers that you trained is today?
Well, some obviously passed away or were killed, and some moved to America, and I actually helped a few that moved.
You did?
I did.
Jerry personally helped 3 Iraqis immigrate to America, including one he has since visited on the East Coast.
It's just, it's definitely rewarding. It's good too that we take care of our allies. They trusted us, we trusted them, and quite frankly, they kept us alive.
Here, the discipline is very important. Yeah. Respect and discipline.
In 2004, this newly minted captain embodies the risk facing men and women signing up to serve in the new Iraqi National Guard. Back then, insurgents broke into his home and shot the former school teacher in the leg. Only later did Jerry learn assassins struck again, and this time the targeted attack killed this Iraqi soldier. When you look back at the war in totality, 8 years, was it worth it?
I think it was. And then, of course, the election, that went over really, really smooth. So we had...
And that was Iraqis deciding their future.
Correct.
And you helped facilitate that.
Exactly.
And that was worth it.
It was absolutely worth it.
Vehicle search area is green.
Following troops from the Tennessee Guard in war games stateside.
Fire at will!
And Oregon Guard soldiers running drills inside a combat zone. We learned no amount of training could fully prepare these troops for some of the nights and days they would face on this 2004 deployment in Iraq. "20 years later, we are back in Oregon, reconnecting with those soldiers about how the war impacted their lives.
What do you hope to leave these people with when you have to leave?
A little more stability.
Then he disappeared when I was talking to him, and that's when the IED went off.
Then,
it's like, what just happened? Where am I? Trying to gain your bearings.
And now.
And I'm upside down with my leg pinched in the dash and I'm hanging there.
Vince Jacques recounts the explosion and aftermath from an enemy bomb that killed his Humvee driver Kenny Lyston and forced this severely wounded soldier out of the fight.
And then I could hear the bullets hitting the side of the rig, and the guys were bending steel to get to us. And yeah, I thought I was dead. There was no doubt about it.
You're alive today because of your men.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Probably when I saw him in the hospital and he was still alive. Because that was pretty tough. That was a tough day.
Ryan and Vince are blood brothers. They deployed together to Iraq among almost a half dozen sets of brothers in the Oregon Guard alone.
He said, 2 guys are wounded and one's dead, and your brother's with him. I don't know which one he is.
This pair faced a couple of family scares overseas, including the day Vince scrambled to find Ryan after a mortar attack.
So I'm driving around Camp Taji looking for my dead brother or wounded brother, and there he was coming back from the aid station. They had sewn him up or whatever. His sleeve was all bloody from shrapnel. I jumped out and I gave him a hug, and I was pretty emotional about that.
The Humvee blast Vince survived sent him home early, facing a long recovery.
I broke my femur, I broke my back, broke my neck, bone chips in my shoulder.
Brother Ryan stayed in Iraq, suffering another combat wound, earning a second Purple Heart. 2004 was a chaotic time.
It was a very chaotic time.
Tennessee retired Major General Max Haston recalls the brotherhood among all Guard troops deepened, facing one of their first challenges, shoring up vulnerable Humvees for battle.
And if you remember, Tennessee National Guard was the father of the hillbilly army.
National Guard troops from across the country foraged for scrap metal, welding layers of makeshift armor, outfitting American trucks to improve on the extra sandbags and plywood as the only defense against bullets and bombs. It reinforced the ingenuity of citizen soldiers.
And then right after that, we started getting the upgraded Humvees.
Your worst day?
I had some reserve kids that hit some IEDs and got killed. The worst day is late at night, is having to write a letter home to a parent trying to figure out the correct words to say.
We had several IED strikes on our convoys. We had, it took some small arms fire, and those were all bad days.
This now Command Sergeant Major in the Tennessee Guard, overseeing almost 14,000 soldiers and airmen, says in 2004 Iraq, Oregon, Tennessee, Iowa, National Guard units from all across America faced shared challenges and dangers.
It's a big organization, but it's a small community.
What was your best day there?
The best day was when we left.
In 2024, Vince Jacques has settled on to a quiet farm in the heart of Oregon's Willamette Valley and just over the hill from the homestead of Brother Ryan.
I'm here to welcome you home.
20 years ago, and still recovering from his combat wounds, this soldier was bear-hugging troops on the tarmac, not about to miss this homecoming for his Oregon brothers in arms, returning from their 2004 tour at war.
And they represented us very well. They were good to people, and they fought like hounds of hell when they needed to.
It turns out for Tennessee troops, an unexpected fight back home has proved more costly in the last 20 years than combat overseas.
In my job, I've seen, multiple suicides come through here.
An antiseptic smell permeates this medical exam room. Razor blade steel is everywhere. The cold, stark setting marks the last stop before a final goodbye.
I take pride in the fact that I get to honor those veterans one more time by making sure that they get the honor before they're put to rest permanently.
Working inside this morgue is a gatekeeper, an old soldier unexpectedly thrust on the front lines of the modern military suicide fight. How many have you seen in this job, suicides?
Soldier suicides that I know were soldiers, probably 3 dozen at least in the 5 years that I've been here. That's just the ones that I know about. And I would say 5 of those are soldiers that I knew and served with.
Chris Thomas runs the administrative arm of the Knox County Forensic Center and recalls the first time seeing fellow troops appear on the autopsy table.
I mean, I had not seen this individual in 15 years, but I recognized him the second I saw him.
And it was here.
And it was here.
The revelation deepened his connection to a crisis among men he served alongside for almost a decade.
I joined the Tennessee Army National Guard the day I turned 18. In 2004, I was deployed to Iraq in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom 3 with the Tennessee Army National Guard. It's amazing to think that it's really been 20 years and to think of all the personnel that have changed since then and what a close-knit group I still am with some of the soldiers that we served with.
War, by its nature, carries the risk and reality of death, and overseas deployments for the Tennessee National Guard's 278th Armored Cavalry Regiment took a toll on the ranks.
A friend of mine, Paul Thomas III, was killed by an improvised explosive device. In total, 278th, we lost 10 soldiers that year and a half that we were there. 5 of them were on or near the base that I was at.
Like I say hi to my wife, my daughter, I love you both, my mission, and say hello to my family.
Chris recalls Specialist Tucker died just 2 weeks before heading home. Another reminder of the randomness and cruel reality of battle.
So it was a very difficult time. I know a lot of people dealt with a lot of stress of you never knew who was trying to kill you and who wasn't.
Once his service ended almost 2 decades ago, civilian life took over. Military friendships faded.
You get a lot of remorse and survivor's guilt, and there's a lot of survivor's guilt from soldiers in Iraq too, for those that didn't make it home. And every time another soldier takes their life, you keep thinking, why, where did I miss this gap?
And then, in his new job, Chris began to bear witness to the military suicide crisis firsthand. Men he served with years ago now taking their own lives.
I've seen too many funerals that I've been to of soldiers that have either died from drug-related deaths, from overdosing, or have taken their own life with a firearm in themselves.
That reality is spurring this veteran soldier to act. His campaign is simple and it's personal.
One thing that soldiers really struggle with is that they can't talk to other people about what they're going through. It's something they can only talk to each other about, and they only feel comfortable talking to other soldiers.
What do you want to say to soldiers right now who may be struggling?
You're not alone. There is a large group of soldiers, and the problem is that they're all feeling these same things, and they're just being quiet about them. They're not, they're keeping it inside until it gets to the point it's too much. Find other soldiers to talk to. Find me, call anybody. You're not saving anyone from a burden by taking your own life and removing yourself from the picture.
Reach out, reconnect, repeat. It's his new mantra. It's the only way he knows to stop more old friends and fellow veterans from showing up at the forensic center after an abrupt and unfitting end to their lives.
And I want to say goodbye to them in their old age when I'm in my old age. That would be my preference.
This is a letter he had sent to my grandfather. Talking about Thanksgiving dinner, it says that he ate the supper because the line at lunch was so long.
For the first time, Megan Thomason reads a newly discovered letter dating back 20 years from her father Paul, written at the start of his combat tour in Iraq.
My fishing buddy, my hunting buddy. I mean, I was attached at the hip from the get-go. So here was one of Daddy's favorite places. This was in Elkmont. This one is actually my dad's last birthday party before he left.
You knew at 10 years old?
Yeah.
Your dad was gone?
Yes. They said that he had been killed in action. And losing my father took a big chunk of me.
You had to endure your father's funeral. What do you remember about that?
When I saw that man laying in that casket, I said, that's not my daddy. That's not my daddy. It didn't look like him. His face was swelled up. And I could see bruises and everything on his face.
What did his fellow soldiers do for you?
They always reach out. They never go without remembering and honoring my father, still to this day.
Across the country, National Guard veterans gather every year to honor a fallen soldier from Oregon killed by a roadside bomb in Iraq. Kenny Lyston, a respected multitasker and notorious prankster, was 20 years old.
All right, PFC Lyston, aka Mr. Snuggles.
Unfortunately, we're here to celebrate my son's death, but it's a bittersweet thing that I really am proud of. Hard to say that, but I'm super proud of him.
We actually do it every year. We link up at Willamette Cemetery at 12 o'clock, noon, every year, and we go up and visit his gravesite with his dad, Ken Sr. And that's what we've done for 20 years. And it's good to see the guys, and it's good to watch out for each other. We don't choose our wars. We go where we're told. When you raise your right hand, that is an insane contract you make with your life. And very few people do it. And the ones that don't make it back, we can't forget them.
Boom. You know, that went off. And all I remember is my Humvee doing that'd be 360.
In November 2004 in Iraq, we spoke to this Oregon Guard unit suffering the loss of 8 soldiers killed in the first 6 months of their tour. The casualties included David Johnson, a cook turned combat gunner.
You always find a buddy to hang around with, you know, and he was my buddy.
The pain runs deep.
Is it true 20 years later that the pain still runs deep?
Oh, yeah, I think, yeah.
Chaplain Daniel Thompson recalls 3 soldiers who died in one day.
I went through some counseling myself, trying to deal with it. And my reaction was just work all the time and not think about it.
To me, my dad was everything. But he was just a little backwoods boy from Sevier County. This fisher's over 40 years old.
Back in East Tennessee, Megan holds on to every memento and memory of her dad.
You don't know family until you have a military family.
And after 20 years, on this day, in addition to the discovery of these letters from her late father, she is about to experience another first.
Megan?
Yeah.
Chris Thomas.
I know.
Chris Thomas served with fallen warehouse worker turned soldier Paul Thomason. Chris has kept in touch with Megan during the last 2 decades, but for the first time, they meet face to face.
I'm really glad that you're here.
Megan's dad, Paul Thomason, was one of 14 soldiers serving in the 278th, killed during the 2004 deployment.
Legacies alive say a person dies twice in their life. Once when they pass away, and secondly, when their name is spoken for the very last time. And I will stand here and I will shout my father's name. His name will not be forgotten.
Just the excitement of going over and helping out. I know that guy.
Rewatching themselves in a pre-deployment story from 20 years ago stirs a flood of memories.
Just a joyous time, actually, to spend and to cherish and to have these moments. It's just been a good treasure.
This is our second home, pretty much. So, and it's just relaxing.
To us, when we were like, what, you were 26?
26, yeah.
26 and 23, going into this, you know.
What do you tell those kids?
Oh, you have no clue.
2004 Iraq would test this young couple in ways they didn't predict.
I didn't own a cell phone at the time. I went out and bought a cell phone because he would call and I would walk out of classes in order to get those phone calls, and he'd have to wait an hour or two in a phone line booth. I don't know how many times he'd call and there'd be a mortar attack and you would hear the mortars come in. And I remember the very first time it happened and hearing the mortar and the sounds go out and communications be cut.
If they cut out the phone lines for a week, it's just like there was no communication back home. So because there was no front line, we were just in a constant state of
awareness.
Awareness, and like you were always on.
Bart also endured the loss of fellow soldiers, including 4 in one day. And what's running through your mind as a young soldier?
The questions of, like, who did this? Why did this happen? Am I making it home alive? Yeah, no, it was, yeah, probably the toughest part of it all.
Your faith really helped you.
Yeah.
A walking tour separated by 20 years and half a world shows the contrast citizen soldiers faced in a foreign war zone compared to their familiar downtowns back home.
So it's been a year now for us, and we still have at least 5 more months to go.
We first met Chris Bagley in 2004, juggling 8-month-old Kay, 4-year-old Nathan, and dog Shasta. At the time, we promised to hand deliver a crayon note from Nathan to his dad in Iraq.
Yeah, that's my son.
Lieutenant Bagley savors this small connection with his family.
It's the most difficult thing in the world to watch my children grow up on videotape. That hurts more than anything I could think of that would happen to me here.
Lieutenant Bagley. Unbelievable. Look at this guy. 2 decades after we first met the Bagley family, we sit down together with Chris and Aaron.
Oh my gosh. Oh, goodness. That brings back some memories how young everybody was. How much the kids have grown. I mean, wow.
It makes me sad because I remember the hard things that happened. I remember the things he missed.
Especially, you know, some of the stages of Nathan learning to ride a bike.
And I remember, you know, the soldiers that were lost and how hard that was. You know, we went to all the funerals here. You know, we felt that. We knew the families. They were our friends.
What was your worst day?
The worst day, I'm sorry. June 4th, 2004. So we lost Eric McCrae, Justin Irely, and Justin Linden, all in that time frame. That was the worst day. That worst day. I mean, enough that I put a tattoo on my leg to commemorate it. It was just that significant.
Aaron Bagley traded his fatigues for the uniform of a police officer, but he points to that 2004 deployment as a turning point in his life.
You know, my wife had been handling with a toddler and an infant and trying to reintegrate not only into my family, but back into society. I can't believe that it's been 20 years because it's still so close. Yeah, just how fast time has gone by and for such a significant event in my life.
Looking back, a good experience, bad experience, a mix?
I'd have to say it'd be a mix of both.
Almost 30 spots around the globe, from Tennessee to Mississippi to Germany and Iraq to this quiet suburb in South Carolina. Bart has now served his fellow soldiers and his country for almost 24 years. Surveying his memory wall, this mechanic turned Army chaplain admits 20 years removed from Iraq, post-traumatic stress from that deployment still gnaws at him today.
I talk to people about getting mental help and learn to grow from those experiences and to move forward.
Bart no longer has the Bible we first saw in 2004, but 2 decades later, he is still guided by the same passages.
Philippians 4:13.
Fantastic.
Says, I can do all things through him who gives me strength.
From the open river valleys and rolling hills of Tennessee to the lush forests and evergreen stands of Oregon, we asked the soldiers we reconnected with after 2 decades, all volunteers in the 2004 Operation Iraqi Freedom, one question. That deployment worth it?
I've gone back and forth on that one.
A lot of positive impact on the community for us being there.
When you look back at the bigger picture of that war, was it worth it?
How do you say it's worth it when you lose men? I mean, how do you say that? Looking back, I'm not sure what we accomplished in the sense that the national objectives, I don't know. Doesn't seem like we accomplished a lot that way.
Was it worth it to go to war in Iraq?
You know, I think about the good things we did. I remember working the elections.
And that was Iraqis deciding their future.
Correct.
And you helped facilitate that.
Exactly.
And that was worth it.
It was absolutely worth it.
I would say, at least for me, it was definitely worth the fight.
Was it worth it? Yes, it was worth it at that time to stabilize that part of the world, because I think if Saddam Hussein had stayed in power down there, there would have been a lot more people dead.
I think for some people it was, and some people it wasn't.
We don't choose our wars, is what a lot of people need to know. We raised our right hand to defend and support the Constitution of the United States. Our elected officials decide where we're going to go, but we sign that oath with our lives.
So let's go take a tour, because I want to see how things are different, if they are. So, was it worth it? I can't say yay or nay. You know, it's a struggle.
Dozens of National Guard troops from Oregon and Tennessee earned awards for their courage under fire. And for hundreds of those soldiers, 2004 marked just the beginning of their war service. They would deploy again to Iraq in later years and also answer the call in Afghanistan. We owe a special thank you to filmmaker Gary Mortensen, who produced the documentary This Is War. And I'd like to extend my deepest appreciation to photographers Jerry Owens and Scott Williams, with me from the start of this project. To the soldiers of the Oregon 2162 and the Tennessee 278, we owe you a debt of gratitude we can never repay. We are grateful you allowed us to follow you along your journey. Thank you for watching Guard in Iraq 20 years later. I'm John Becker reporting.